Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
That's pretty exciting. I'm glad me and you and Paul are in different places right now because I'm about ready to fight after seeing that. You guys are bigger than me, so.
Hey, and we haven't even started talking about these new rules yet.
No.
Yeah, we got a special presentation tonight, man. Benton's going to walk us through the new GHSA playoff rules for Class A through Class 3A.
Well, yeah, a lot has been determined. We'll start with how it's going to be separated. I think that's probably one of the very first thing we should start with, and I can get it pulled up. Everybody should be able to read it. There we go. So, basically, the gist of this is notes from the meetings that they had today. The proposal was made that Class A D2 shall consist of the smallest, approximately 50, it says, football playing public schools. Basically, D1 and D2 are still going to be here. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 will be here as well. They did away with 7A. So that's going to bring, it looks like some of those schools in 6A will have to play matched up with those 7A schools. And I actually did a little what if, and I'll pull that up here in a little bit. But the proposal shall be divided into 6 classifications based on the following approximate percentages. Class 6A being the largest, 14% of the schools, followed by Class A being the smallest, 26%, and that will be busted into, Division 1 and Division 2. So you have your 2 divisions in A. Classes 2, 3, 4, and 5 will all be equally divided between the remaining players or teams, schools, 24 to 26% in each. And the vote was passed unanimously 14-0. So 6 classifications, still got your D1 and D2. This is where it gets interesting. There was a proposal that all schools competing in Class A, AA, and 3A will be assigned regions by the GHSA office, which we figure to be similar to the regions that we have now. May not be. We'll see. Teams will compete within their regions during the regular season, and at the end of the regular season, private schools from these A, AA, and AAA will compete in one combined championship bracket. So instead of being 3 championships in the private schools from A, AA, and AAA, there will only be 1 for all 3 classifications. Majority of the private schools are in the lower end. There's only a few in AA, AAA. I don't think that's that big a deal, I guess, unless you're not a dominant private school, and then you might not have much of a chance. But anyway, the GHSA office, this is where they throw a big wrench into everything, that most people's opinion at least. At the end of the regular season, the public schools will compete in their own championship brackets divided up. So A, public, will have its own championship bracket. AA, public, and AAA, public, and so on and so forth, will have its own championship bracket. The GHSA office will use the power rating format, which, people have seen before, to seed the playoffs in both public and private brackets from A, AA, and AAA. That vote went 12-2 and passed. It passed. So they're going to obviously, it says here they have formed a subcommittee to study competitive balance model for the next cycle, which will be 2 years down the road. And they put some kind of thing in saying that the committee has to know prior to the meeting before anybody brings up a new idea, I guess you'd say, the next time. So, with all that being said, a lot of words. Lawrence, Paul, what's your initial reaction?
Without jumping into the power rankings, I like the proposal. I like the split between the private and public schools for sure. I don't think a single A public school from South Georgia should be playing a private school from Atlanta that has 3.5 million kids to draw from in a state championship. So in that aspect, I think it balances out. But Paul's had experience with this and the power ranking. The power ranking can jade some of the seeding, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree. I'm going to agree with Lawrence as far as the private and public schools should be separated, competing for state championships. I agree with that 100%. So kudos to them for that. But the whole power rankings and the power rankings being based off of the regular season schedule with public schools playing private schools in that schedule. I hope you guys don't have any friends at the GHSA, but what are these people smoking? Like, I'm sorry. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. If you're not competing for against somebody for a state championship, to me, why does that make it any different than a single A team playing a triple A team in a non-region game? I don't understand it. I don't get it. And it probably doesn't affect a lot of teams in our area, and I get that, but I don't understand how playing a team and losing to a team that is in your region, but who's not competing against you for a state championship should affect your rankings when you get to the playoffs.
I guess the only solution to that would be, to continue playing those people, but just not have it count in the power rankings for either program. I guess that would be one solution.
But here's the problem with that: you might have somebody that's in these rankings that somehow doesn't draw a private school.
Yeah, or a school that's in a region. Yeah, or a school that's in a region that's all private, and so they have no power ranking at the end of the year because they've played all private schools.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to fix that portion of it. I think that's why they kind of let it go. And I'm not defending them at all. Trust me.
Oh, there's a way to fix it. There's a way to fix it.
Yeah, totally separated. I understand. But the reason why they're not going to do that is because of the regions. They wouldn't be able to form enough regions. I think there's only maybe 23 private schools in single A or something like that.
It's actually 20. It's actually 23 that are going to compete for that football championship from 3A all the way to single A.
See, one thing that I haven't seen written, which we'll have to get clarity on, how many teams are going to make these playoffs? Obviously, if there's only 23, I don't know what kind of – is it going to be a 16-man field? Is it going to be a 24-man field in single A, double A, triple A? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
I don't either. But to me, if you're going to make it fair for everybody across the board. Make it the same. Like you guys said, there's going to be some schools with a lot of private schools in their region. There's going to be some schools with none. There's going to be some schools that have one or two. But to me, it's just laziness. Like, to me, the GHSA is no different. It's no different than Congress. Like, if you can't sit down and take the time to make it right for everybody, then what purpose do you even serve?
Yeah, this seems like a good solution to the problem. Make the wins and losses against private schools weighted. So a win against a private school would mean more than a win against a public school, and a loss against a private school would mean less.
Yeah,
that's one solution that you can
absolutely
do.
Maybe take whatever if you played a double A private school or single, maybe go one classification up as far, like give them an extra point for a win or give them a half a point for a loss as like you're playing up a division. I mean, you could do that. I mean, I don't anything like that. Obviously, that's not going to happen this year because I mean, it sounds like to me it's pretty well buttoned up. I mean, they're obviously they hadn't got the reclass numbers, and then they'll talk regions and all that, and there'll be a bunch of people filed to go here and go there, like always. But as far as I
How
see,
many
go ahead.
how many other private schools are going to apply to go down to AAA now? The ones that are sitting right on the edge. I think there were a few last year that applied to go up to 4A. I bet they want to get back into that 3A now.
I mean, maybe.
Here's an interesting question. Is this for all sports or just for football? I think it's for all sports, right?
Yes.
As far as I know. Yep.
Yeah, and let's see. And it's basically they'll reclassify everybody based on reclassify them based on student population. And I think the last thing I read, the multiplier is still there, right? 3-time multiplier for out of district.
Yes, multiplier hasn't changed, I don't believe. And I took the previous numbers and busted it out into these percentages and looked at some of the teams and where they would be. But it's super confusing because you have teams, it basically breaks it down by your original numbers, not your multiplier affected numbers. So there'll be teams that show that they may be here that would be there. Say Gordon Lee shows as being a spot, in one of the lower divisions. Well, you add their numbers to it, and they're 2A, and then they choose to play in 3A. So I mean, it was interesting though because it really busted up some schools. I think Dade County was one of the largest schools in the A bracket, and teams like Model, Pepperell, Chattooga, teams like that were all in that lower end of the 2A. So who knows, if teams go up, teams go down. I think that's what happened last time. You had some schools that went up, like Gordon Lee and such, that brought schools down. So I don't know. It's going to be crazy to see how that taking 7A away and bringing all those teams down is going to affect the bottom.
Have you guys heard anything about speculation over the new regions or classifications with the multiplier at all? I've heard some stuff in the last couple of days. I just wondered if you guys had.
I haven't heard anything.
No, I haven't heard anything.
I mean, I'll just say it. I've heard, and I don't know how true it is, but I've heard there's a real good chance Tryon may move into a region with Bowden, Mount Zion, and Manchester.
Well, I mean, if it turns out to where schools like Chattooga and teams like that are in the 2A, then maybe it's beneficial for trying to play up. Now we've talked about it, and I think there was some reasons why they wouldn't. Now I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. I mean, Chattooga's not going to be a reason why they wouldn't now. Sure.
Yeah, do you want to pull up the power rankings for them? Show them just a quick view of how that's going to work.
Yeah, this is a
like I said, we're not going to get deep into it because it's pretty deep. But
yeah, I'll give you. I'll show an example of how they have done the power rankings or how the system, quote unquote, system is set up. Let me pull it over here. So this is previously how you determine your power ranking. I don't know. Let's see if I can make this bigger. That didn't work. Maybe a little better. All righty. So determining the power ranking. A win if you can see here, a win is 10 points. Then you add, if you played a higher classification or not, you get 1 point per each classification up that you play. And then you take your opponent's wins and divide it by the games that your opponents have played, and you multiply it by 10. And you go down this list, and say you were single A and you played 3A and you won, you get 10 points plus 2 points for playing up 2 classifications. And then you go to how many wins divided by your opponent's games they played times 10, which totally gets into a big math equation. So here's a good example. This is a single A team, by the way, in this example. Opponent A, they lost to them, and they were 2A. So even though they lost, they don't get the 10 points, but they get a half a point for playing up a classification. The record was 6-4, so you'll take the 0 points plus the half a point. 6 divided by the 10 games, multiplied by 10, and you get 6.5 points for that loss to the upper class. And then you add them all up at the end of the year, and they'll seed by your total points. And Paul's point is, if you got 2 private schools in there, and they're in the same region as you, so you're not going to get any points for playing up, and you take a loss to those 2 schools, when somebody else, is in a different region and only has 1, and they say they don't take a loss, or they take a loss to only 1 of those schools, man, a 10-point swing is huge.
Yeah.
And even bigger if you do not have a private school in your region. And there's teams that don't have private schools in the region.
I'll tell you the thing that's going to be interesting too is when the schedule making starts happening this winter, and do teams go out and look for an easier schedule so they can get the 10-point bonus, or do they go out and look for a tough schedule to try to get the
teams? In my opinion, teams are looking for your single A teams will be looking for your 3 to 5A schools that are notoriously down. And I'm not going to name any names, but I'm just saying that. That's how you get your points. That's how you.
Hey, and I think some of it has to do with how many private schools are in your region.
Yeah.
If you play 2 private schools, do you really want to go play 2 or 3 schools that are 2 or 3 classifications bigger than you?
Yeah, not unless you're catching an 0-10 squad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, those schools at the bottom of 5A and 4A that are 0-10 and struggling right now, they're going to have people knocking on their door come springtime. They're going to have
absolutely right. They'll be able to schedule whoever they want.
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably get some favorable matchups because of that. I would take advantage of it if I'm rebuilding the school and I'm 4A, 5A, 6A. Yeah, I'm letting it ride until the last moment, and I'm seeing what I can get on my schedule. I'm not taking the first man that calls. But anyway, so that's super confusing.
Yeah, but we're going to have a great math man here at Northwest Georgia football next year. The guy that's doing our stat page, Scott Siegel, and he's going to have all this hashed out, man. We'll be able to tell you where everybody stands, what could happen, maybe.
What could happen, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a tough.
I didn't see anything in there that told you how many teams are going to make the playoffs from.
Did not see any of that. So all I know, let's see if I can remember what the breakdown was. Seemed like there were close to 60 teams in about every classification. There's 457 teams, and some of them don't play football. Most of those teams are in Division II, Single A Division II. Let's see if I can pull up this email right quick.
I wonder how many teams are going to have like a mathematician on staff, man, that try to figure out where they want to be seated. They're trying to jockey for position, and if we do this and this, then we'll wind up here and we can play this team, and it's going to be crazy,
Oh, it was crazy back a few years ago when they were doing it just for single A, and now you're going to be doing it for single A, double A, and triple A, and it'll be clear as mud until you get done with game 10, which made it interesting. But here's one of the bad things. I remember back when Trine was doing this, and I mean, you could play a playoff game, or you could play your 10th game, and you didn't know where you were going until maybe Monday or Tuesday, because they didn't put out the finalized power rankings for the playoff seeds. So, I mean, it could be Tuesday and the week that you're playing on Friday before you find out your opponent. And I've seen it happen.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on that sheet either about ties, like tiebreaker. What if two teams are tied for the last playoff spot at 116.5 points? Then what do? Flip a coin?
There is a tiebreaker. Hold on 1 second. I didn't really think about it, but there is a tiebreaker on there. I will read you the tiebreaker. Sorry, I'm not prepared. Tiebreaker is as follows. Tiebreaker procedure. When two teams have an identical power rating, the following criteria shall be used for seeding purposes. If the two schools played each other during the season, the winning school should be the higher seed. That's pretty obvious, head to head.
Right.
If the two schools did not play each other in the season, the tie shall be broken by determining each school's strength factor. The school with the highest strength factor will be the higher seed. The strength factor is determined by the opponent's class plus, the opponent's record, and dividing the number of games played. So, more math.
So if you played some higher classification schools that were not good and you beat them, then you got a leg up.
Exactly. I have.
I'm telling you, this is BCS all over again.
Let's see here.
Yeah, if you're sitting at 0-10 at the end of this year, man, your phones are going to be ringing come January. So just get ready.
All righty, here's you a example. Opponent A lost to a 2A school. Blah blah blah. So you take your opponent's class and you add them up, and then you take your opponent's record, how many wins. Strength factor is your class plus your opponent's wins divided by 10, and there's your strength factor. Clear as mud.
Exactly.
But we are separating the public and private in the playoffs. That should be interesting.
Yeah.
I really would like to know how many teams are going to make it into the playoffs on the public side. The private side as well, but the public side definitely.
Hey, let me throw something out there.
Yeah, let's hear it.
If you're sitting out there as a single A, double A, triple A, and it affects single A more than the others, but if you're sitting out there as a single A school, would you rather be affected by all this kind of playing a private school, power rankings, who you played, and possibly get a lower seed and get eliminated in the first round? Or would you rather just keep things the way they are, play your schedule, get into the playoffs, and maybe make it to the second or third round and lose to a private school in the playoffs?
That's a tough one.
I mean, I know my personal opinion on that is if I'm a public school, I'd rather get beat by a public school.
But would you rather get beat by a public school who's, I guess, leaps and bounds better than you in the first round, or would you rather beat a couple public schools in the first and second round and then get beat by a private school in the semifinals?
Yeah.
I mean, I know where I stand. I don't like the private schools competing against the public schools, but you know what? If I'm going to lose to a private school, I'd rather it be in the semifinals than I would get beat by the number one team in the state because I got a lower power ranking because I lost to a couple higher classification or private schools early and losing the first round.
I hear you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, man, somebody asked me about this earlier today and all these rules and stuff, man. I kind of take the Dale Earnhardt approach, He said he didn't make the rules. He just went by them and tried to figure out how to beat them. But, I mean, I know it's going to upset a lot of people, when this stuff passes or whatever. But, I mean, there's nothing they can do about it, which is the bad part,
Yep.
I mean, it's going to be difficult. Obviously, half the people, well, probably 90%, are not even going to understand how to handle the playoff brackets. I mean, it's just going to be, it'll be last minute before anybody even knows, who the matchups are. Jake Keller says it's totally unfair for private schools. One championship with 3 divisions. Yeah, I think it's because I think they figure that the majority of the private schools are in the smaller divisions. I'd like to see how many private schools are actually in 2A and 3A.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere where there was only 4 or 5.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe that those schools, they're bigger schools, private schools, but I don't believe that they're perennial powers. I may be wrong, but
yeah, I think the 2 that were 3A
it doesn't
last year.
matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, it's still a bigger school when they,
Yeah,
same play.
I think the ones last year that were put in the 3A that were perennial powers chose to play up in 4A for the competition. Which like I said before, I wonder if they'll decide to play down now with a chance to win a championship against Class A schools.
What would
Like
you
I said,
do?
it's gonna be fun, when.
It is. I've got no sympathy for the private schools. I'm sorry, Jake. I'm sorry, dude. I don't see where you're coming from. I don't get it. If you're private, you should play private, and I don't care if you've got 300 kids or 3,000 kids.
Well, I think the fact that it's so close together, as far as the numbers wise, I think that's why it doesn't bother me any to see them play each other. Here is something else to chew on. See if I can get it just a little bit. Whoa, not that big. Jeez. All right. Guess that's all I'm getting. Here is the reclass, the previous reclass, which you would think that you're not going to be far off from these numbers. You might have some that are up and down. I took the numbers that they gave as far as percentages wise, and I put the color code on the division. So the top division now would be considered a 6A division, which is all the giant schools with 3,600 or 768 kids after the multiplier hits for Mill Creek. Keep in mind this number that it's divided by or separated by is the FTE enrollment. So the reclass number may change where these schools are. It's just an idea of looking at where they are on their FTE original enrollment. So when you go down, obviously you got the big schools. It cuts off and you go to 5A right here. And if you look in the very top of 5A, you see teams like Rome, South Paulding, Houston County, Pope, Sequoia, Creekview, the teams that Rome play with now. So it doesn't look like it would change too much. Going on down, this is where it starts to affect some of the 4A schools that would bump up. Villa Rica up to 5. Cartersville would stay in 5. Teams like that. I don't even know why you can't see this next one. I think it was gray or white, but Woodland would drop down to 4A. Now, keep in mind, the multiplier hadn't hit any of these schools yet, so you have to look at the far right. But this is just off their FTE numbers. Cass would be in 4A. Calhoun back down to 4A. Other teams, Hiram there at that number. Northwest, Southeast. So, I mean, a little bit different for some of the local teams. Cedartown sitting there, Heritage, Ridgeland there with the numbers to be up there. Then you go down to 3A, LaGrange, Gilmer, White, coming on down. Cahola Creek there, Lafayette, Lumpkin, Sonoraville. You got teams like Murray County down here, Ringgold, North Murray, Adairsville at the bottom, Rockmart right on the edge. So honestly, that close to the bottom, Rockmart could very easily be a AA school next year. I know they're right on the edge anyway. They were AA this year, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, teams are going to move up because of this multiplier. So you would imagine probably maybe even getting Adairsville. I mean, this is just a what if, by the way. Don't go saying that all these teams are going to be in the other regions. But this is where it gets interesting. 2A, you still got Gordon Central, Bremen, Pepperell right here, Fannin. Love it. A big school in Atlanta. Let's see here. Lamar, Chattooga, Coosa, some of the other schools. Rayburn. Then you go down to your 1A, which would have Dade, Temple, Hurd right on the edge. Armurchie sitting there. Gordon Lee, but like I said before, Gordon Lee, if you look right here, 608 after the reclass. So might as well forget them being in the bottom. But just an exercise I did, but the multiplier hadn't hit any of these yet, so I guess might be worth its weight in. Yeah, who knows? But
yeah, I think they're all supposed to have it. I think they're all supposed to have it hashed out by Thanksgiving, right? Isn't that when they usually come out with the new classification?
I think so, and you're correct. That is 2 years ago. I'm just looking for reference because you would think you're not going to, reinvent the wheel. I don't think schools are going up or down hundreds of students. It's possible, I guess.
And they are going to keep the multiplier at 3. They didn't change
everything that I've seen. The multiplier will stay where it was, so that will, basically what it does, it just knocks some people down a little bit because obviously you're removing the 7A, and besides that, I mean, the biggest move is the splitting in the playoffs, and I think we all agree that it's not fair, but I don't know what other options they have besides just totally playing public regions and private regions. But just not enough schools.
Yeah.
Too
I
much,
could
too
see
much state and not enough schools.
Yeah, I could see it in the Atlanta area, but if you're a school like Christian Heritage, man, there's nobody for them to play. Darlington, if they just had to only play private school.
Yeah.
But like Paul said, I mean, they're private schools, so
Okay, that's
choice they make, huh?
private school problems.
This was something that was discussed. I didn't see it in their meeting this time, but it has been discussed. If you are basically, if you've been there a while, they're
Yeah.
going to excuse you from. But I don't know 100% if that's been enacted or not. I just know it had been brought up in one of their meetings.
Yeah,
And
but
like you said,
I've heard the same thing. I've heard the same thing, or at least some discussion of it. But I don't know if it's, I don't know if that's anything official or not.
Yeah, we'll have. I'm sure we'll have something else when they actually drop out the new regions, and we can get more information on it. But I just wanted to do this little thing right quick to give you a heads up of what's coming. Be on the lookout. GHSA normally puts it out on their Twitter or on their website, and they'll put out the meeting minutes, and you can go in and read those. And
Yeah, we figured we'd give you enough time to go out and take another math class so you can figure all
Yeah,
this stuff out.
yeah, go ahead
If you
and
need
get
to,
your
if you need to brush
calculator
up on your calculus, you can enroll in junior college and get it figured out.
Yeah, hopefully our math guy can get us something where we just punch in a few numbers and it spits it out the other end. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we'll send all the advertisement money his way just to get that done. Anyway, all right, guys.
We'll see you back here Wednesday night for the Pick'em show.
Yes, sir.